Alright guys, today we're going to be making a jig, trout jig, out of some pretty basic items, and yeah, let's see what we can do. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to get a bead. This is a, how big is this? 5mm bead. So you probably want to use tungsten because it'll be the heaviest, give you the best size to weight ratio. And you're just going to put a little hot glue on there. I mean, not hot glue, super glue. And then you're going to set this right on there and let that dry for a minute. And now that we got that on there, we're going to take a little bit of lead wire, just about a 2-inch piece of lead wire here, and you're going to just wrap it on there. You can wrap it behind the head. And I didn't show you what we're going to be making, but we're going to be making some little tungsten jigs like this. And this, probably more like this one. It's a little bit smaller. This is the pink and purple. This is the pink and black. I really like the hot pink for trout. It works really good. And then we're going to probably just put a little bit of glue on there while we let that all dry. So we'll let that dry for a minute. So the next part you're going to do is you're going to take a hot glue gun like this and just start kind of filling in the area that doesn't have any lead, like that. Before you really start hot gluing though, you'll probably want to make sure it's really secure on there, because you don't want your stuff fouling around your hook and not being on there good. So we'll just let that dry for another minute before we really start hot gluing. And yeah, I'll show you a couple tricks on how to get a good jig. So now we're gonna keep gluing, kind of filling out that jig's profile. You kind of want to use as little hot glue as possible, that would still make the jig look good. And also you want to use as little as possible on the belly of the jig. So once you get a pretty good size base layer established, we'll just want to kind of get everything with a little bit of glue on it. Pull off all your little strings and just touch up kind of a few areas. Like that. if you already do have it in mostly jig shape like I do, but you can rub it along the surface and smooth it out and just apply small amounts of glue where you need to, just to get a nice finish on it. So I'm going to smooth this jig out. Remove all the strings. Helps if your hot glue gun is fairly hot when you do this, because it'll melt the glue better. Okay, just move it away from the eye of that hook there, so you still have a easy access to that. And yeah, then you just kind of flex all the glue around that hook. And it takes a little time, but it's pretty rewarding once you finish. Alright, so see how that's starting to look a bit better there? You can see that it's kind of got that jig profile similar to these ones. Similar to these, it's got that jig profile, and it's still pretty small. We've got most of the jig hanging below the hook here, so that the hookup ratio is not going to struggle. So I'm going to just do a little more here quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next step. You do want to take your time at this step because it will kind of determine how good your jig does turn out. So once you're done that step, I like to just take a razor blade and clean off the excess hot glue off the hook. That kind of on the underside. And then just cut that off like so. Make sure it still looks good, as well as on the eye of the hook, because you don't want that to get too much glue on it. And we've got a nice sturdy hook now. Yeah, make sure you test yours and make sure that it doesn't wiggle it or wobble at all. You might have to add a little bit more glue on there, but ours doesn't, so we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step is we're going to take our glue, our super glue, and not epoxy, but you can use epoxy. This stuff I like because it's sandable, it dries, doesn't dry clear, but that's okay because we're going to paint it. And then you're going to just take that and apply it to this jig's body. And you're going to use a decent amount, give it a good drip, and then kind of just smooth it over the entirety of the jig, so it can get on the whole thing, on the front of the head, and as well as the rear towards the hook shank as well. So it's all covered here, it seems like now. And now you're going to want to let that set. The glue drips down towards the head. And you can rotate it just to make sure you've got a nice even coat on here. And yeah, it's en route to being a beautiful jig. Our jig is dry, the glue is dry, so now we're going to sand. I'm using 220 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to rip off a little piece and fold it in half a few times, so I've just got a small amount. And then I'm going to start on the side and start sanding it. And one other thing you should note is the smoother you get it now, or if you do one more layer of glue after this and sand it twice, the nicer jig you'll get. So if you don't do it super good and you just kind of don't sand it smooth, you won't get as nice of looking of a jig. Alright guys, we're pretty much done the jig now for the most part. I finished sanding it with the 220 grit sandpaper. It's really nice and smooth now, and so you can see it's nice and smooth, and it's got that nice shape of a tungsten jig, and it's still pretty small. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is paint it. So a hot pink paint, this is just acrylic, and then we're going to clear coat it after, so you don't have to worry about it not being waterproof. I'm going to stick a little bit out, and before you start painting, I just like to take a little brush all the dust off of my jig, and then feel it, make sure it's really smooth. Make sure that there's no make sure it's not bumpy or anything. Give it a brush, and then we're going to start to paint it. I'm going to do another hot pink one so it's easy to see on camera. So yeah, let's paint. The first coat I'm going to do is just going to be a thin coat. So it dries quickly. There. So I don't know if you guys can see that super great, but that's kind of what we're working with there. Just gonna give it a little bit more. There. And yeah, let that dry for a minute, and then we will add our details. So let's give this a minute or two to dry. And one tip I have is put it in front of a fan or something that really speeds up the drying process. by like 100%. So I'd recommend doing that. And yeah, let's let this dry. All right, now we're gonna finish. The paint is dry, and now I'm just gonna add some fire tiger stripes on it with black, so, and some eyes. So we're just gonna take our toothpick here. Make sure it's completely dry before you do this though. And just, I'm gonna give it some small black stripes across the top, and I'm gonna give it probably 3 of those. And one more. Finish this one off. Just make sure I got all these edges good. There. That one's got 3 stripes. Now we're just gonna give it 2 eyes. On both sides. One eye on that side. I'll try to make it as even as possible. Top side and the other side there. So it's kind of a fire tiger pattern, hot pink, and oh yeah, I didn't show you the dots on the bottom. I did. So all right, the final part of this video is gonna be us just going over. I'm gonna give it a clear coat, and yeah, I'll show you how I do it. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of clear nail polish and drip it on there. And you want to make sure it's good and dry before you do this. A good coat like that. And then I like to tip it upside down and then just slowly rotate it. Alright guys, clear coat looks good. It fully dried, and now you've got yourself a great jig for ice fishing. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to see our other trout fishing videos, click the link in the description to see those, and see you next time.